Rewind-A-Dynamite from the post-wrestling site. AEW, lighting up the fuse. Sit back and enjoy the bubbly as we hear from John and Waiting. Where we're going, we don't need roads. And if the buck stops here, this thing might blow. Everything you hear are opinions of the show. And if you don't like it, go to the forums and let them know.
Hello, welcome to Rewind-A-Dynamite, presented in super high definition. I am John Pollock alongside Waiting, who is
Lovely.
going. I hope your back muscles are really prepared for a workout, because you're gonna have to carry this one way.
I don't know what you mean,
Dude. I'm just done. I'm done.
Been a long day, huh?
Oh my god, this has been it's been a long life, but
Do you think this job will age you prematurely?
Oh, dude, one day you're gonna turn this camera on and you're gonna be like, what has happened to this guy? But some people are probably already at that stage already. So don't know what I can tell you, but yeah, yes, there's nothing great to talk about, but we're gonna cover it all. How are you?
Yeah, I'm doing all right. I'm doing okay overall. I'm happy.
That's great.
Mm-hmm.
Glad.
That's what matters.
Good to hear. Still haven't finished Echo yet. Those final 20 minutes have eluded me all week.
Hopefully you have some time this weekend.
That's my goal. Carve out 20 minutes. That's all I want. I just want 20 minutes to finish this this show. So that's on my to-do list. What else? At least knock on wood. It sounds kind of quiet this weekend. There's nothing too much. There's the New Japan show.
John, please.
You excited for the Super Bowl?
Not really. Not at all. I never am. Are you?
Nope.
Who's performing? What's the halftime show?
Is it Usher?
I have no idea.
I saw some of the commercials.
Already?
They put them out earlier. Yeah, I think they want this has always been, or at least it's been the case for a while. They put the commercial out and then it creates like.
So what's the point?
I don't know. To me, I would be, why not I just, instead of paying the $4.5 million for my 30-second commercial, why not I just say, hey, here's our Super Bowl ad that we released during the week. And everyone was like, hey, look at this Super Bowl ad. And I'm not going to pay the big fee. I'm just going to upload it to my YouTube. And that'll be my expense.
It's an interesting tactic. I mean, there's still a lot of prestige to be able to say this is a legitimate Super Bowl ad. But I don't know.
What if I just told you this is a Super Bowl ad? You just take my word for it that it was. I mean, here in Canada, we don't even see them. So it's like,
I mean, you do have credibility to maintain. And I feel like these big corporations do as well. So I'm going to need proof that it'll air on the Super Bowl.
Wouldn't want any of these big corporations to lose their credibility with their consumer out there.
No,
I saw one with Uber Eats with David Schwimmer and Jennifer Aniston.
Wow. Okay.
Uber Eats is pushing. Their concept is that when you remember something, in exchange, you also forget something. So you have all these celebrities that forget something. So they have our favorite performer, Jelly Roll, looking in the mirror one morning and saying, someone drew on my face, not realizing these tattoos. He forgot that he got tattoos. And then you have Jennifer Aniston and David Schwimmer meeting on a Hollywood lot. And Jennifer Aniston's like, sorry, have we met before? She's forgotten who David Schwimmer is. And then at the end, it's Usher with his friend saying, man, I wish I could perform at the Super Bowl halftime show one year. And his friends are looking at him because I think he's doing it this year.
Yes, he is. Yeah.
Way better in 60-second form from people that know how to do ads rather than rewind a commercial, not going to be in our future.
Right. Okay.
Well, that's one too.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
Anything notable about
not
that
for
one?
Uber Eats. It's for Bud Light, if you could imagine.
Okay. Sounds thrilling.
Our Super Bowl preview.
Yeah.
Coming up this Sunday. Is the Super Bowl on Sunday this year?
Yeah, I'm going to say yes.
I'm just trying to hit off all the boxes. I don't want to just get tweets. I want to get personal.
Should I retitle this video in this podcast to call it a Super Bowl preview?
We'll get flagged if we use the word Super Bowl and we haven't paid some licensing fee out there.
Yeah,
it's like the Olympics here. They're like, you say one of these things and you're going to get a lawsuit somewhere.
No more lawsuits, please.
No, we have lots of legal issues to get into just on a regular basis. But we are going to be coming back on Thursday, folks, because if you want us to take a detour from some of the pro wrestling chatter, well, on Thursday, we're chatting about a documentary from 22 years ago, The Smashing Machine, which debuted at the Tribeca Film Festival and then aired on HBO. And this was a pretty well reviewed and widely acclaimed documentary of rarity in its time period in terms of a look into mixed martial arts, and this following around Mark Kerr at a time like some of the best documentaries, like you just follow someone around and it just so happens it turns into like this super tumultuous period in their life. And suddenly, Mark Kerr, he's like this highly touted heavyweight at a time when, the sport is certainly in its lowest level of popularity in the United States. But this is the rise of Pride, which launches in 1997, and Kerr goes over to Pride, and this is sort of where we are in 1999, 2000, as he's battling drug addiction. And this gets into a lot of discussion about steroid use, painkiller use, and going from use to abuse. So it's a pretty compelling documentary that we will be discussing. That available for all members at postwrestlingcafe.com coming up on Thursday. Number 150. So we will be celebrating 150 editions of Rewind-A-Wai.
It's a really good documentary. Maybe to this day, I'm sure at this point there have been plenty of documentaries made about MMA, but I would probably suggest that this is still one of the best, if not the best, combat sports documentaries, period. So I'm happy to talk about it. Looking forward to it.
Okay, that's coming up on Thursday.
And then, the movie that Dwayne Johnson will be adapting.
Yes, Dwayne Johnson will be playing Mark Kerr in the future release, and we will see if what the difference is. This will be everyone's litmus test to see how faithful it is to the documentary and what is.
Can he talk like Mark Kerr? Can he do a Mark Kerr voice? I wonder.
Mark Kerr is like, he would have been a great ambassador for any of these companies. Like he is. Yeah, we'll save it for the review.
Sure.
Very, very good documentary. Spoiler. And then coming up this weekend, we're back Friday night, Rewind-A-SmackDown. Saturday, news permitting, we will have the long and winding Royal Road with W.H. Park and Wei Ting going back to 1995 for Masawa Kawada. Did you pick this or did W.H.
W.H. chose this. He chose it.
But you were nominated to come onto the show to discuss this match.
He chose the match and he also chose me. Yes.
Well, he runs the ship, okay?
He does. Yes.
Yeah. And then Saturday night Collision Course, and Sunday, I don't know what's coming up on Sunday.
Maybe you can finally finish Echo.
That's it. 20 minutes of Echo still to come. Maybe I'll read a book. That's what's coming up on Sunday.
We have Karen and Bruce.
Oh, of course. New Japan, New Beginning in Osaka. Actually, that's the big show of the weekend, which is taking place. Will Ospreay's farewell in a 5-on-5 cage match, and then could be the final Tanahashi Okada match.
What do you mean? Oh, okay, you're saying like ever, but certainly on this run in the foreseeable future.
Let's just say like it's it very well could be their last singles match. There is that potential of things. I mean,
what do you think? They'll announce Okada Tanahashi as his final two matches, just like make it a best of three.
No, I'm just saying, like if he goes to AEW, it's not something where you completely throw out the idea that you could do this match again. But nonetheless, it's going to be a very significant match. And like lost in all this, Bryan Danielson is facing Zack Sabre Jr. on this show on top of it, which I mean is kind of like the number 3 match on this show. So that is a loaded 3 matches to have on one card coming up in Osaka on Saturday. So big show. Karen Peterson, Bruce Lord will be tackling that on the Café on Sunday. So look forward to that. That's what I'll be doing. That and Echo.
It sounds like a great weekend.
Okay. Let us move on. Anything else you want to get off your chest? Any ranting, raving?
I mean, am I much of a ranter or a raver?
You're not much of a raver, at least not anymore. That was your 20s. I do want to make mention on a serious note. We had David Bixenspan on Pollock and Thurston today, and we want to focus the show around the Titan Gate scandal from the early 90s. And I think that there is a lot to be learned from this series of scandals that the company went through and kind of juxtaposed to today. And when we're talking about the culture of this company, I think it's best to go look at some of the DNA that we saw in the early 90s when they faced the child sex scandal. And I don't think there is anyone better than David Bixenspan, who has done so much reporting on this story, knows this inside and out. And he was on with myself and Brandon Thurston for over an hour. What we tried to do was lay out who the major players were and try and, it's a very complicated case, but try and take people through sort of as an overview of it. And you can certainly seek out Bixenspan's other work with Chris Zellner for more of a deep dive into all of the different events that went on in the early 90s. So would recommend this show. I was very happy with how it turned out today.
Yeah, there's really nothing good at all about any of this, that's been going on with Vince McMahon. But I guess one of the few good things about it is that it's bringing to light a lot of these other stories that might have kind of been pushed into the I don't know, just lost throughout history that might have not garnered as much attention. This is a story that is has existed for a long time, but hasn't really had, I think, the relevant interest that it might be enjoying now. So thank you to you and Brandon and Bixenspan for reintroducing it, I'm sure, to a wider audience.
We'll go into the news. And before we get into some of the major news from today, I just wanted to make quick mention of Toby Keith, the country singer who passed away a couple of days ago from stomach cancer that he had been battling for a while. He was 62 years old, but from the pro wrestling side of things, he has a lot of tie-ins and could have been a pretty significant force in pro wrestling had the sale of TNA gone down in 2013. But Toby Keith was on that very first NWA TNA pay-per-view in 2002, doing this angle with Jeff Jarrett, who he was very close with. And as the story went, that Toby Keith and Jarrett have always stated was that he got this late invite to perform at the White House or appear at the White House. But he was like, dude, I'm booked on an NWA TNA pay-per-view. And he went to the TNA pay-per-view, which was quite the choice that he ended up making. The man was loyal. And, throughout his time,
and hold on this show, delivered one hell of a suplex.
Look, he did like the one-armed. Yeah. Like he did
delayed
the one-armed delayed vertical here. And and then years later, Jarrett and Toby Keith were in advanced talks to buy TNA, but part of what fell apart was that Panda Energy, which was, run by Bob Carter, like part of his parameters, at least one of them was that they did have to find a role for Dixie Carter. And that was, I don't know if that was the sole reason that destroyed the deal, but it contributed to it. And they did not end up buying TNA, but had he, could have been a very different landscape when you look at TNA and where things go. And then he did do a guest spot once on an episode of Raw in 2010. So leaves behind a wife and 3 children, but someone that certainly had pro wrestling in on his resume, but of course is going to be much more well remembered for his performance career. Let us now move on over to let's start with this is a terrible story, one that we had seen a number of years ago after her passing, and that is Ashley Massaro, who Vice.com's Tim Marchman had a story on today. So she passed away in 2019, and when that occurred, the lawyer Constantine Kairos, who was part of the big lawsuit against the WWE that involved about 63 performers, one of them was Ashley Massaro, and revealed a affidavit that she had signed, this like 15-page statement, and it included these rape allegations when WWE was over in Kuwait meeting with the troops, and Ashley Massaro stated that she was dehydrated and needed to be taken away to be tended to, and was injected with a drug and raped, and did alert people in the company about this. And she alleged that she was told that Vince McMahon said that he was sorry that this happened, but let's not make a big deal out of this. And so in 2019, when this affidavit comes out and we see the statement from Ashley Massaro, WWE put out this statement. This was at the time in 2019. WWE is saddened by the death of Ashley Massaro, and we reiterate our condolences to her family. However, we regret that her attorney, Konstantin Kairos, who filed multiple cases against WWE, lost all of them, and was sanctioned multiple times by the court for repeated misconduct and false allegations, is using Ashley's death to further his malicious campaign against WWE by releasing an affidavit that she submitted to the court and later apologized to WWE for being involved with. So we wish to make certain things crystal clear. At no time was Vince McMahon or the management of WWE ever informed by Ashley Massaro or anybody else that she had been sexually assaulted, drugged, raped, or sodomized by a military doctor with a nurse standing guard while on a goodwill tour they list it here as 2007, but it's been clarified it was 2006 to U.S. military bases in Kuwait. In fact, if she ever articulated such a claim to WWE, we would have reported it immediately to the base commander. At no time was there ever a meeting with Vince McMahon, Kevin Dunn, John Laurinaitis, or other company executives in which she told them of such a claim and was instructed to keep it quiet. So pretty solid statement from WWE in the sense of there was no wiggle room, that they absolutely were denying that this happened. So fast forward to today, and Tim Marchman's story comes out, and they got comment from Edward Brennan, who continues to be kind of the vocal representative of John Laurinaitis. And it states in the Vice article that Laurinaitis' lawyer, Edward Brennan, objected to the use of the term cover-up, but confirmed that John Laurinaitis knew about the rape allegations and said that, quote, most upper management did, contradicting WWE's claim that executives were never made aware of them. He goes on to state, any allegations that Mr. Laurinaitis helped to cover up an alleged rape allegation is an outright lie. Johnny, like most upper-level management, at some time became aware of the allegations and ensured all proper WWE protocols were followed, including privacy for the alleged victim. We object to the use of the term cover-up, as no such plan or plot ever took place to hide or assist in the alleged rape. So this is contradicting the statement in a major way, indicating that John Laurinaitis knew and that company management knew as well, which flies in the face of this statement. Number one, this is a horrific set of details, and this is in essence corroborating what is alleged by Ashley Massaro, by John Laurinaitis, who has now, through his lawyer, in a sense, corroborated aspects of Janelle Grant's lawsuit and has now corroborated this. And listen, John Laurinaitis is he is coming at this from the sense that he is willing to play a role in all of this, that he can corroborate a lot of these charges that he has to know that, that his lawyer is conveying here. So, I mean, he is kind of putting himself in the middle here and is someone that can confirm or deny a lot of sensitive company material. And it also is going to shoot a lot of credibility in the WWE's way when they have a public statement that is saying the complete opposite. And now you have a member of said management that is stating the opposite.
It's a really important piece of, I guess, information that does not necessarily prove or disprove, Ashley Massaro's affidavit, but it does discredit WWE and might point to a level of, I think, lying and deceit that might have existed in that company's culture. And this could potentially
at the bare minimum, WWE has to answer for this. And this statement, do they stand by their 2019 statement? Are they going to actively dispute John Laurinaitis's statement here through his lawyer?
And anybody who maybe reads either the Vice article or Ashley's affidavit itself, you'll be just as horrified reading it as you would the Vince McMahon Janelle Grant lawsuit. And there has to be some hope that some justice might be found for her, even in death, as a result of this story now getting a bit more attention. So whether or not it does, I mean, we'll find out, but it's yet another story that is kind of being brought up here in relation to the history of these terrible stories attached to Vince McMahon and this company.
The last thing from the Vice piece was that Vice News can report for the first time that the Naval Criminal Intelligence Service opened an investigation into Massaro's allegations in June 2019. So this is 1 month after her death and the affidavit being made public. That investigation was closed in January 2020, according to an NCIS spokesperson. Further information, they said, could not be immediately released as it would need to be obtained under the Freedom of Information Act.
Which you and Vixen Van spoke about today on the show.
Yes. And I am sure that there are going to be many people that are going to be filing such a Freedom of Information request for this as well. And the fact that there was an investigation, and a specific one that you can easily refer to, and hopefully the results of which are released to the public. So it's a terrible story, and it's at a time when WWE and its culture is very much under a microscope, and deservedly so. I think this is the time that you have a lot of attention, and people are looking underneath of what I think more and more we are seeing, that yes, there is a lot focused on Vince McMahon, but as we have said from the get-go, this does not begin and end with Vince McMahon, and there is a lot that you can dive into. The Ashley Massaro case just being yet another one of them. Also today, we got news of the firing of Scott D'Amore by TNA Wrestling. This announcement came out earlier this afternoon, and TNA making a statement that they're just essentially going in a different direction. The press release was worded in such a way that they were complimentary of Scott D'Amore leaving, but it was very notable. There was no quote from Scott D'Amore. This was not this does not come off as any kind of amicable split, as they noted that his contract has been terminated. And from the press release, they state that the move aims to further integrate TNA Wrestling into Anthem Entertainment Group, of which, and this is naming Anthony Ciccione as its new president, leveraging the entire company's resources to add more value in areas including production, distribution, marketing, viewership, customer acquisition, and several other areas. Ciccione replaces Scott D'Amore, whose contract with Anthem has been terminated. D'Amore has been a part of TNA since 2003. He held many key leadership positions and played a vital role in the growth of the company, leading to its strong industry reputation today, including the successful return of the TNA Wrestling brand in 2024. Anthem thanks him for the commitment he brought to the business, the talent, and the people who work outside the ring. So there was a call with talent that TNA held today. And as you can see online, there has been vocal support from many people that this sounds like this caught many off guard, or ones that they are very comfortable to protest publicly. Like Scott D'Amore had a lot of people by his side in TNA. And if you are just looking at this from a outside looking in perspective, this comes at a time when TNA is coming off one of their best, runs of business during this entire Anthem era, between the Hard to Kill pay-per-view, what they drew those weekends in Las Vegas, and overall interest in the company with talents coming in. Like, there is a lot of momentum for the company at this point. And I think that there are a lot of questions that I think would give people pause of wanting to know all of the facts behind this before one rushes to judgment. I mean, you're not just terminating a contract out of nowhere. Like, obviously there's more to this story. And I think until you know what there is, you can't really give a full kind of 360-degree view of whether this was the right move or not by Anthem.
Well, not to mention, just as a part of this entire rebranding, D'Amore really was the face of the promotion, at least from a creative and sort of like upper
and on air. Like,
standpoint.
he had turned into the Paul Heyman on screen, like giving the big rallying speeches. I mean, he's out there after Josh Alexander and Will Ospreay, and he's just giving like this heartfelt, like he was becoming like the figure, like the most public, I would say, like face of the company.
And I would also suggest the man with the most credibility for that role because of his tenure with this company. I mean, maybe outside of like a Chris Sabin or somebody like that, but for somebody who has existed since the early days of this company, who's still a part of it and has earned, I would say, I think the sort of applause, like deserved applause for like carrying this company through some very dark times into, I would say, a pretty respectable, position that it is today.
He took over a brand that was dead, like just barely with a pulse when in 2017.
So I have to imagine Anthem would expect some negativity towards something like this. And it has to make you ask the question of why this move was done so suddenly. What other factors might be involved, and we don't want to speculate live on air, but it's the type of like suddenness that makes you ask these questions.
You would have to take pause. Just the idea, like there's more to the story, and I think that they will be asked of this. We have reached out for any kind of statement from Scott D'Amore. We will see if he states anything publicly. But yeah, it's a major shift, and we will see as well the talent that responds to this. Like there were a lot of people, like they were very much like he was obviously a leader that inspired a lot in his locker room, and there were many people willing to go to bat for him. I mean, just the fact that they're tweeting publicly, I think that tells you volumes when we talk about it's very rare that you see that kind of that kind of response when you're talking about talent that are going to be working under the regime that made this decision. Now,
creatively, what sort of changes, or who do you expect to take over the mantle?
Well, some of the key creative people now are like Tommy Dreamer, Gail Kim, RD Evans is there in the mix as well. Like I would imagine like those are going to be some of your key creative people. Lance Storm is there in like agenting, producing capacity. Anthony Ciccone,
I believe.
Delirious as well. Yes, he's also there in a creative capacity. Now, you and I have a very unique angle to this that we can probably speak to Anthony Ciccone more than most because we worked with Anthony Ciccone when we were at the Fight Network. I have no idea what Anthony Ciccone's involvement in pro wrestling has been over the past 6 years. He might be a total super fan now. He was not when we worked with him, but I would very highly imagine that he is going to be more the business side as TNA president. I do not expect Anthony to be sitting down and writing out promos and building up programs for Bound for Glory.
Neither do I, but I mean, hey, we have not worked with him in like 6 years. A lot has changed. It's possible.
I can't state,
but that is not his background. That is not his strength as a professional in this industry. He comes from a television background. Was one of the heads of The Score, sports television station, and then was of course responsible for, or at least had a hand in bringing the WWE over to The Score at the time. Now Sportsnet 360, or at least owned by Sportsnet now. So he has history with professional wrestling that way, but we really knew him as more of just almost somebody who's at the top from a business standpoint, from a production standpoint, has a long history in that department. So I would expect him to manage or sort of move over into those fields or those roles within TNA. Creatively in professional wrestling, I would expect to go to the former wrestlers or people who have a longer history there.
That would be my expectation as well. So that is a major move for TNA, and we'll see. Like there was definitely more negativity to this story online from people that it does tell you what TNA that they had built up this goodwill among fans, and Scott D'Amore was your front-facing person, so he has been credited for that change and has been someone that has been a constant from 2017 up until the present. But again, I think everyone's looking at this of like what is not known versus what is in this press release as well. Moving on to just a few other topics before we get to the Dynamite review. Cash Wheeler of AEW, he is facing criminal charges from that arrest he had last summer for aggravated assault with a firearm. There was a warrant that had been issued for Wheeler last summer, and he turned himself in Orange County. This was when he was alleged to be swerving on the highway, and a driver in another vehicle had moved over to the right lane to allow Wheeler to pass him. And then this the victim here, Daniel Mata, stated to the officer in his police statement that Wheeler allegedly pulled up on the shoulder, and then he ended up pointing his semi-automatic handgun from the vehicle. And Mata ended up taking a photo of the vehicle, called 911, and there was a court appearance, and it looks like prosecutors are moving forward to try and seek criminal charges against Wheeler, who the next hearing is set for February the 20th. So we will continue to follow that. But that was Yeah. I mean, that was the story like last summer. And I mean,
Before All In.
It was right before All In, and
Mm-hmm.
then had kind of been dormant for a few months. Raw did 1,889,000 viewers on Monday night, a 0.58 in the demo, holding up pretty well from the prior Monday, which was coming off the Royal Rumble. This one had all the fanfare behind the Rock Roman Reigns announcement and how Cody would be handled on Monday's episode of Raw. So I would state this was a pretty good number. In particular, 18 to 49, like it was consistent across the board. They did 748,000 in the demo in hour one, jumped up to 794 in the second hour, and then 755. So the third hour beat the opening hour, but that's very strong retention in the key demo for all 3 hours of the show. And yeah, that is all of your news that you can find at postwrestling.com.
Of course, we have big Thursday tomorrow with the press conference at 7 p.m. Eastern.
Oh yeah, that's tomorrow. Yeah, press conference. That's going to be, it's very interesting because you have WWE in Vegas for, of course, the Super Bowl is in Vegas. You have WWE doing this huge press conference. AEW is doing Collision just outside of Vegas on Saturday night, although that doesn't feel like a really big show. And UFC is doing a card at the Apex on Saturday night, which is, it's just funny that like UFC, they used to do their Super Bowl weekend card. That was always a big show each weekend. And this year, like the Apex, you'll have like 100 people watching fights live in Vegas and the night before the Super Bowl.
I mean, it's a big crowd in one of the most tourist friendly cities in the entire universe. So, Usher, what can you say?
Yeah. Tomorrow's going to be a big day for WWE. Probably a lot of media attention on this. We should probably have the two major Mania matches known by Thursday night. You would think like the press conference will at least clear the picture, if not paint like a direction. Like maybe we're going to have some passageway through Elimination Chamber to get to the full lineup. But I mean, we should have a good indication of where things are going from this press conference that I would think they want to kind of hammer home at least Rock's involvement on the show and confirming that match.
I have to think with as much mainstream media that they might be expecting for something like this, you're going to get the main event. All 6 people that you might see on this graphic, that's the Roman Reigns, Bianca Belair, Seth Rollins, Cody Rhodes, Rhea Ripley, and Dwayne Johnson. I have to think you will know what their directions are for WrestleMania coming out of this. And everybody wants to know what's Cody's direction. So hopefully this will answer it.
All right. Well, that's Thursday. We'll have a report up on the site. Jack Manon will be covering that for the site over at Post Wrestling. So check out all of that great stuff. And now we move on over to Dynamite from the Footprint Center in Phoenix. About 5,200 tickets out, according to WrestleTix. And Excalibur welcomes us to the biggest Dynamite of the year so far. I mean, we're only 5 weeks in, but Dynamite of the year so far.
I would say accurate. Yes.
Yeah. It covers a lot of ground because this year already feels like it's been 8 months.
Yeah, it has.
Opening things up, it is the number 1 contender bout between Swerve Strickland and Hangman Page. Winner goes on to face Samoa Joe at Revolution. And man, pretty hot crowd from the beginning, chanting for AEW. And we get right into things here. Swerve ends up stopping a buckshot attempt and gets dumped to the floor on his shoulder, and Page misses the Orihara moonsault. Swerve hits this Fosbury flop, and the crowd's going nuts for this. Page bites him on the turnbuckle, sunset bomb, but then Swerve, to avoid the sunset bomb, flips over, and dude, it looks like he comes down on his head, and he is like selling for a bit. Might not have been selling even, but dude, did this look like, oh my God, did he like escape death here?
He didn't even really sell it. He just popped right back up and like did his
popped up, and then he goes down to the ground, and you could see the ref go over, and I think he was like getting his bearings. But I mean, God, went another like 20 minutes after this.
So scary. I mean, but obviously he seems okay. Might have just kind of posted enough to prevent the damage on his head. But man,
scary moment
very
of
scary
the match, to say the least. Page is then placed in the Tree of Woe, and Swerve lands the stomp, and then there's a table set up on the floor. So after Page takes this stomp, he casually rolls onto the table, and this table just gives way. And this crowd is so sad. They were like, God damn it, we came here for a table to break. And so Swerve grabs another table for this big pop, and they just set it up in the corner. And this doesn't come into play for like way later into the show. So I don't know if they had the second table spot in mind for later for this, or they just brought this out and improvised for later.
It could be all those things. Could have been just a tease of the table spot to come later, but whatever they did, I thought they managed to save the moment pretty well.
Regardless, I'm glad he didn't just take out the table and then we did the spot to just be like, okay, we screwed up and we're gonna. Instead, he set up the table and then we forgot about it for like 10 minutes, and then it was this big moment with the table later.
With as much like evolution as there's been, you know, I don't know, over the past 30 years with technology, you figure there'd be some sort of a, you know, advancement in pro wrestling table technology to prevent stuff like this from happening.
Table legs are just that way. They're unpredictable. All of a sudden, Justin Roberts notes 5 minutes remaining. And in my head, I just assumed it's 20-minute time limits. It's 30 here. So this match, I couldn't believe we were at 25 minutes already.
Continental Classic would be 20, but outside of that,
that's probably what was in my head.
Yeah.
So the buckshot connects onto Swerve, but Swerve gets his leg on the rope. And Prince Nana is ringside here, but of course, Swerve had explained to him last week he doesn't want Nana to get involved. Then there's a dead eye on the edge of the apron. So Swerve is down and Nana is trying to get his attention. So he starts doing his dance to wake up Swerve. Swerve gets in at the count of 10 and Paige gets a chair. But instead of disqualifying himself, he nails Prince Nana, and he's full heel by this point too. He had already been kind of playing it, but now we're making it clear distinction between the two. Swerve boots the chair into the face, hits the Swerve stomp, but as he comes down, he buckles his ankle and he's selling the ankle, tries for the JML driver after getting to his feet, but it's countered, and Hangman goes to the ankle lock, sensing the injury. But Paige is knocked into the post. Swerve hits his own dead eye on the apron through that table on the floor. Great spot here. And then tries for the Swerve stomp, but misses and comes down on his shattered ankle and ducks a buckshot, lands the JML driver, but the ankle is hurt. So it just delays him going for the pin because of this ankle. Gets on top, 1, 2, and the bell rings, signaling the 30-minute time limit. Now, I was not timing this match, so I can't tell you if they nailed it or not. It's not like we had the countdown from Justin Roberts, but this match was awesome. I thought this was tremendous.
So awesome. And if it's not actually 30 minutes, I almost don't want to know. Like, I'd rather just kind of keep this match.
I want to know if they hit it. If this was like 30 minutes and 10 seconds, it does like you got to note that.
Well, you should have had the stopwatch. Where was the stopwatch tonight, John?
I was behind. I had to. It was a whole thing.
I thought this match, maybe time limit aside, because we don't have verification for that yet. Everything else about this, I felt was perfection. You know, the death match that these two had, I think will be, you know, justly remembered for the violence involved. But I think what made it transcend just being a death match was the fact that these two are just fantastic wrestlers with or without all the gimmicks. And you largely had a pretty straightforward match, you know, table spot aside, without interference outside of, you know, Prince Nana dancing. But it just showed you, like, purely here, they are great professional wrestlers and amazing in-ring storytellers. And they gave us 30 minutes of excellence here. And this time with Hangman Page pretty much fully embracing his heel role tonight. Now, I don't think it's a heel. Like, do you think it's the type of heel that will stay throughout the, you know, the other cities? Or do you think this is a one night type of adjustment for this crowd?
No, I think they're going to just tailor it to the audience and play it. This was one where, I mean, it started off, it was, I wouldn't say quite 50-50. Maybe it was like 60-40, 70-30 for Swerve, and they just played with that. And by the end,
Swerve had like the injured shoulder. It was teasing like an injured lower back at times. Yeah.
I think like we've come to expect. I think they just kind of roll with the punches, and you know, if you get a negative reaction one night, it's not cause for, like, I think we're going to have these characters that shift back and forth, especially these two.
I guess is this the time we should be reminding everybody that this man invaded the Paige's child's room?
Also did give him a gift. So that's the silver lining to it. Gave him a shirt.
True. Yeah.
Didn't abduct the baby.
Yeah. Huge baby face. Yeah. At this point, it doesn't matter. It's almost like the audiences realize, okay, that was a gimmick, but who do we actually want to see ascend the ladder? Who has not received the opportunity yet? It's Swerve. So he's a major babyface tonight, and this keeps that rubber match out there. You know, these two are one apiece, 1-1-1 now. So that last match between the two to finally settle it, you can still save it for a pay-per-view, and of course it sets up for the triple threat.
Yep, it sets up your match for the pay-per-view. It still gives Hangman like this guy that he has never been able to beat, and the crowd booed when the time limit was hit.
Sorry, are they 1-1-1, or has Swerve has won both of them? I apologize.
Swerve won both. Yeah.
Yes. Okay.
Swerve then states he wants 5 more minutes, and Paige is laughing, saying, "You had to beat me to become the number 1 contender. You didn't do it, and for you, it's over." And so that's all he cares about. He just wants to block Swerve from getting to that title match. So
what did Paige think it meant for him? I guess.
Well, he explained he just doesn't want Swerve to get this title. He's going for the title, but it's more important that he can block this guy from getting what he wants as well. And he got to play spoiler here. So he was content to play spoiler. If he won, so be it. But he'll take this time limit draw. But Tony Schiavone, through Tony Khan, notes that both are number 1 contenders, and thus we are getting a 3-way at Revolution. And Paige freaks out when he hears this, while Swerve smiles. So
yeah, Paige was doing the sort of cowardly thing where, you know, he was having a fit and not wanting to wrestle for 5 more minutes, that sort of thing.
Yeah, I think that this is you have 3 strong performers for this show that you can make arguments for any one of them to win this match. Personally, I think Joe has so much gas left in the tank as this champion, but you can go many different ways. You can go with Hangman, but he doesn't beat Swerve in this match. Feels early for Swerve, but I mean, he's the hottest of the 3 as well. And maybe they look at the timing there. So I think it's a really compelling match, and I think the quality is going to be outstanding.
I'm usually not a fan of multi-man world title headlining matches because I tend to think it takes away from maybe the sort of intimacy of a singles feud. But this is the exception, especially after this incredible time limit draw that these two had. I mean, Paige and Swerve, I think, will go down as one of AEW's best feuds. So they reheated it up very well tonight with this 30-minute time limit draw. And I think the story is going to be both of them wanting to reach the championship and Samoa Joe trying not to lose it because he doesn't need to get pinned. So I'm very much looking forward to it now.
And should be the rare championship match that does not close the show at Revolution as well.
That is true. Yeah, well, at least not world singles championship, you mean. Yeah.
Swerve, we go to the back. Samoa Joe reacts. Once again, we celebrate mediocrity with neither man winning the match. They don't want me to be champion, and no matter what, he walks out of Revolution as champion, and both will suffer. He's pissed. Tony Storm, Red Velvet eliminator bout with Deonna Purrazzo on commentary. Storm is in control. She's landing with jabs. Red Velvet comes back with some of her own, goes to the body, and in a wheelbarrow into the Bulldog. Storm then trips her as Red Velvet is running into the corner. That sets up a hip attack and DDT, and then she applies the ankle lock. She was taking notes during the last match. Steps on the head of Red Velvet for extra pressure, and Red Velvet submits. And she won't let go of the hold until Deonna comes into the ring, gets into her face, and then Tony starts sniffing her.
Yeah. It might be a bit hard to explain some of Tony Storm's actions really any week, or at least some of the things she says. And tonight she's proceeded to sniffing. Did they sniff back? I don't know, whatever era Tony Storm is portraying here. Did they sniff like this?
It's rare that the women ever get a sniff of the first hour of Dynamite.
Oh, yes, very good. Hey, I thought this was a good match. I thought Red Velvet looked really good here, and I think Tony Storm has found a really good blend of this gimmick while mixing it up into a pretty, compelling modern professional wrestling style. She still does a lot of the personality stuff, but it's not so sort of cartoonish. It's in the form of wrestling holds and wrist locks, and yes, the wind-up punches are kind of goofy, but I could definitely buy that over a frying pan in her butt or something.
So now that we have the ankle lock clearly established, is this going to be the moment at the pay-per-view where she applies the ankle lock to Deonna and she's face to face with the tattoo?
I think you probably totally guessed why she introduced the ankle lock. That makes total sense.
Okay, well, this will be she's going to have a a crisis of identity at the pay-per-view when she has to be confronted with the duck.
Yeah. Wow. That would be quite the ending. Spoiler alert, John. Let's see if it comes true.
Renee is with the best friends in Orange Cassidy. So Cassidy is facing Ishii on Saturday's Collision. And Trent says, that's weird. And the Six will be facing the Undisputed Kingdom on Rampage. And Orange Cassidy has asked if that's smart to have a match the night before Collision. And Cassidy was like, actually, we're taping it tonight. And I got several days of rest before Ishii. And Chuck Taylor's still injured. And they're off to go check on him.
Not much to say. What do you know?
These are designed to be awkward. Like they're very much having their fun with the sign-offs at the end of these. Moxley, Danielson, and Claudio against Volador Jr., Mascara Dorada 2.0, and Hechicero. And we got Místico, Esfinge, and Star Jr. Taking in. They got seats together. Not easy to grab 3 tickets at the last second either.
Well, they didn't stay for the whole show, so I don't know if they have a deal where you just sit down for your friend's match and then you can leave.
No, they're gonna miss Rampage. This match, crowd was into the CMLL talent here. Volador Jr. hit a tope suicida onto Moxley and Danielson as Claudio then stomps him after he lands. Then they did the same to Moxley after he lands a dive. There's a giant swing to Volador, and then Dorada goes to bounce off the rope into a double arm drag, but he gets caught up in the ropes. But man, did this guy just totally get right back on track.
He made up for it later.
Oh my God.
More than made up for
he
it.
didn't let this get into his head at all. He just continued forward. Crowd's into it. There's a spinning hammerlock into a backbreaker by Hechicero onto Danielson. 450 by Dorada. Save gets made. And then the Busaiku knee lands on Volador. And then we get Hechicero in here with Claudio. I so want to see this singles match. Put that on Rampage. Put that on anything. Like Claudio and Hechicero for 10 minutes would be tremendous. Moxley breaks up a stretch muffler by Hechicero, and then there's the guillotine leg drop onto Claudio. Claudio shoves Hechicero into the referee, and as Claudio lifts him up for the Manhattan drop, just knees Hechicero in the balls for the finish and pins Hechicero.
Excellent match here. This and the Hechicero match from Saturday have been great showcases for CMLL and really great showcases for Lucha Libre, and Lucha Libre being treated in sort of principal roles on Dynamite here. In particular, in this match, Mascara Dorada just looked amazing, innovative, next generation high flying, very similar to in the League of a Commander or of a Kingo. But I mean, Hechicero, I don't know how often you could see Yave style at this level anywhere. So he continued to feel very special on this AEW Dynamite, especially being paired with any of these members of the Blackpool Combat Club.
Yeah, and then Místico Jr., Star Jr., and Esfinge jump the rail, and BCC, requiring backup, get it in the form of Matt Menard, Angelo Parker, Matt Sydal, and Christopher Daniels. And it's no disrespect to any of these four, but we talk about how loaded this roster is, and these are the four that have been dubbed Team AEW.
So what level of talent would you expect for a role like this? I mean, they're really just supposed to be supporting acts. You might get a Rampage match out of it.
They did the Rampage match. That was last Friday.
You might get more Rampage matches. All I'm saying is people that are actually important to the show have their own big storylines going on rather than just, being sort of the guys to lose to the CMLL dudes.
Well, I think that I do want to see them kind of the CMLL guys, they're putting this big focus on them. I do think they need some key wins to establish them and not just that they're going to lose to the stars as well. Right. I think that is, you want to make this group feared, something that they are a threat credibility wise to the big talent, and they're not just reserved for wins over your Sydal levels.
Well, what do you think the end game is with the CMLL integration? Do you think we get something for Revolution?
I could certainly see something some involvement on that, or some sort of big showdown card of some sort. But you really have to establish the CMLL guys to your audience that is not as familiar with them. But I think in ring, they've done a great job, just with that. I think
they did that tonight for sure.
Yeah, it was a great match that they had here. Backstage, Chuck Taylor has been laid out by the Undisputed Kingdom. So he's still injured. And then
So this was like what I felt like maybe AEW's attempt to maybe answer some of the criticisms of the Undisputed Kingdom not feeling threatening at all and not being at least sort of at the level at where they were when it was like, anonymous and it was the devil doing these random attacks. This was one of those random attacks, except they're taking full credit for it. But against Chuck Taylor's, I mean, like this firmly, puts them into a feud with the Best Friends, which I would hardly say is an important feud for them to win at all.
maybe they should have gone after Matt Sydal.
Sure. Yeah. Chris Daniels. But I guess it does also set up like who's going for of course, Roderick Strong versus Orange Cassidy.
Yeah. The countdown. We're down to 4 weeks.
Yeah.
Tony Khan gives us his big announcement, as announced earlier today. Ticketmaster had the big announcement, it turns out. So Tony Khan's just piggybacking off this. They're going back to Boston, the TD Garden, March the 13th for a very important night. It is AEW Big Business with tickets on sale this Saturday. Calls it one of the most important nights for AEW and one the entire industry will remember. And there in the graphic is Boston with the $2 signs. So we're doing the punk tease, essentially.
We are, yeah, without like any sort of a verbiage, like best in the world. But I mean, seeing it in the graphic,
I would say this
itself,
is even more over. Well,
it's
I
at the
would say
same
not
level.
far. It's as overt as the punk one. Yeah.
It's at the same level, and I think this is kind of about the announcement we all expected, like not a blatant announcement. Hey, Mercedes Moné is going to show up, but something to basically spell it out without directly spelling it out. Well, they did literally spell it out here, actually. But yeah, it's about as much confirmation as you need. And we'll see how they do in terms of ticket sales. Do you think this could be as successful as the first dance?
I don't think it's going to be that level. I mean, that would be, well, let's put it this way. The last time they were at the TD Garden was for Blood and Guts last July, and they did about 9,000, just under 9,000. Do you see it doing higher than 9,000?
I do see it being higher. Like anytime I think
that's a real success for them. Like AEW is not doing 9,000 tickets for TV these days. Like,
when was the last time they did 9,000? Actually,
I'd have to look it up. It's been some time. Like they did 5 tonight, and that's a good number by current standards for what AEW has been doing weekly.
I mean, I have to think they'll load up the card as well, But is Mercedes Moné as big of a name as maybe we think she could be, or maybe she thinks she could
last
be?
Year when she got announced for that San Jose show, I mean, we have such a small, like for a US show, like it's not like Mercedes had all these big matches because she was hurt for so much of the year. But when they announced her for San Jose, like the remaining tickets were gone right away. But that was like 2,000 or so that they had. Right. Like it was a very small building. But this one, listen, if they do 9,000, that's a hell of a feather in her cap because this is all on Mercedes. In terms of
do we get a match? Is it just a promo?
I guess we'll see the closer we get. Like they could also pivot. Like if they, like, let's just say 3 weeks from now, we're 2 weeks out from this show and they're at 4,000 people. Like maybe they feel, okay, we gotta ramp this up and do something more. I would just do like the arrival and shoot an angle. That would be my guess for night number 1, build to the next match.
Who do you pair it with? Biggest name in the roster right now is Toni Storm.
It is, and if she's not busy, I think this is a perfect time to bring back Britt Baker.
Okay, yeah,
that's it's a good program. Someone that has not been on TV forever, and I mean that's just one idea, but I'm sure that they have this mapped out because this has been expected for some time. Jericho, Konosuke Takeshita with Callis and Hobbs in the corner, rematch from DDT's Ultimate Party last November. And right away, Takeshita hits a brainbuster on the floor. Jericho fights back, and then Hobbs trips him. And then Sammy Guevara shows up, nails Hobbs from behind with a chair, and Hobbs just turns around, no-sells it. So Guevara leaps off the steps with a cutter to Hobbs, and then another chair shot, which Excalibur makes sure we are aware. His hands were down. He had no chance to protect himself.
A rare unprotected chair shot on television these days. I mean, it was more of a shot to the face, but I mean, sure, like it probably didn't feel that great.
Then Jericho put on Konosuke Takeshita's mask and then climbed to the top. And I don't know how well this mask was adjusted. because he leaps off the top for a high cross to the floor. Dude, there was no water in the pool. And this guy just leaped in this mask and crashed to the floor. Takeshita didn't catch him at all. And dude, he just belly flopped on the floor. Like, this to me was just like the ultimate.
Oh man, dude, the best part. So this is like a Takeshita's Oni mask, like it's a devil mask with horns on it.
Well,
And one of the horns got stuck on the mat. He drove the mask into the mat.
Oh my god.
Yeah. A very ugly dive.
The most dangerous yet goofy looking injuries you had ever seen. Yeah,
this was a blind, like a leap of faith for sure from Jericho.
My god, when I just saw him land, I was like, God, Takeshita got none of him. He went.
Well, he was diving in it
right down onto the floor. I mean, that looked like the most painful thing here. So anyway, Jericho recovers from that. There's a senton off the turnbuckle. Jericho gets his knees up. Then he tries to lion salt. Takeshita gets his knees up. And there's a flying forearm into a code breaker that Jericho catches him with. Lion salt gets turned into a blue thunder bomb. Takeshita gets his guard up to block the Judas effect. And then he hits an avalanche blue thunder bomb off the top to Jericho. Takeshita lands the big power knee, goes for the leaping knee, but it's caught with the walls. He applies the walls. Don Callis takes a chair. He slides the chair into the ring. So Bryce Remsburg, who is checking on a man's safety in this walls, sees this chair by itself. Got to go check on this chair. Got to go make sure this chair is not like grabbed by the invisible man. And Bryce just turns his attention away to focus on this chair so Callis can go over and stab Jericho with a screwdriver. It's like, I thought Bryce looked so foolish here. Stopping.
Is this your first time watching a professional wrestling show? Come on. This is a very standard referee distraction.
If
somebody was standing on the apron instead of this chair, you would have the referee look the same.
This was a chair. What was that chair going to do on its own?
Yeah, but but the performers could fall on the chair afterwards. Then who would be blamed for something like that? You got to clear the ring of any obstructions.
You're looking at the safety of the performer 5 minutes from now. He's in a devastating hold right now. I just thought this was so silly in terms of like, there's a million ways to distract a referee. I thought this was really just lazy.
I didn't think this was any dumber than any of the other ways to distract a referee. If you're going to call this dumb, I would suggest that they're all pretty dumb.
Well, I'll call out every dumb one I see, but this was on the higher end of one. So Jericho is stabbed with the screwdriver, and Takeshita applies the walls of Jericho. And I really like this finish. They do the arms going up, and like the way this has now been built is that you are trained to believe that the arm is going to go down the 3 times. So when Jericho holds on for 2, this crowd really was buying into that the arm was going down, and he fights it, but then Takeshita pulls him to the center, and Jericho taps out to his own finisher. So they certainly
tapped that to like a lion tamer variation.
Yeah. So, I mean, there were definitely some moments in this match, but Jericho took like a lot in this match, from like that blue thunder bomb off the top.
Oh yeah, his head bouncing everywhere. At one point, like I believe like he took a drop kick and like got ricocheted into the ropes pretty hard.
That was the brainbuster spot on the floor. Like he took a lot of like physical stuff in this match. And at the end, I mean, this was the right finish for Takeshita, and a meaningful one with the walls. Like we talked, like, this program has certainly been greatly hampered with Kenny Omega's ailment, his diverticulitis.
In addition to everything else that's been going on with Jericho.
Right. Yes, with Jericho as well. So, I mean, this kind of just reheated Takeshita up with a really significant win over Jericho here. So yeah, I really like the finish, though. I thought that was really well done.
This is a very, very good match here. You know, you can maybe understand why their last match at DDT was, I think, praised so much, because these two have incredible chemistry. And it was very clear to me that this was a Chris Jericho that wanted to replicate that level of quality and spectacle for a television audience in AEW. Takeshita, I thought, looked at his best here, and I would say Jericho looked at his best as well as an in-ring performer. Everything they did to me looked pretty good. Maybe that
attempt when he there was the mask bot, and then there was that moment where he lifted Jericho and he ended up just like almost losing him, so went to like a bastard driver, and then just deadlifts Jericho up. And that just seemed like this incredible recovery that they had.
Freakish strength. Excuse me. I can't even speak.
Oh, it's breathtaking to watch this guy just execute a deadlift like this. So I mean, he's a very, very strong man. That Konosuke Takeshita. It's powerhouse Takeshita. With all due respect to Hobbs.
Lost my breath there. Good match.
Collision on Saturday. We have got Cassidy and Ishii, and then Moxley and Claudio against Espingue and Star Jr. announced. But that takes us to the main event of Big Bill and Ricky Starks against Sting and Darby Allin. Tornado match for the AEW tag titles. Huge reaction for Sting, and he's got his kids in the front row. And man, his two sons.
Can you really call them kids anymore? These are like grown men,
adults. Yes.
Who look a lot like him. At least his one son looks like.
Oh, if Tony Khan wants to continue Sting, one of the sons could just, you could get another 30 years out of this character.
Totally. Sting 2.0. Yeah, I mean the luchadors do it. Why can't Sting?
Stang.
Yes.
Okay, maybe not. They brawl into the crowd right away, and Sting is at home climbing on top of the balcony, and we get the balcony dive early in the match, and just pops right up, lands. Dude, Big Bill and Ricky Starks. I mean, this was thankfully not a Jericho Takeshita dive. This was they caught him perfectly. It was like no one. If anyone doesn't catch Sting, you're fired. Okay.
Yeah, it's too bad Sting wasn't wearing an Oni mask. That would have hindered his vision here. I was shocked that Sting did this balcony dive. It wasn't even to end. I was shocked because we are so close to Revolution, and any sort of major risk to this man's health that would prevent him from making that match would be unfathomable. Okay. Not only that, this wasn't even a match closing dive. This was a dive to commercial, and this was one of the taller dives Sting has ever done.
Sting, we want a really hot throw to picture in picture.
Yeah, exactly.
Is he doing a 450 at the Greensboro Coliseum?
I'm gonna say
what has Darby taught him? What has Darby taught him? You can do this.
He could probably pull off a coffin drop pretty well.
I've thought of that. That's one move, with the projecting your back for Sting, just knowing that issue and the buckle bomb issue he had. I would actually not want to see him do the coffin drop. I mean,
nor would I want to see him do a dive off the balcony.
Well, at least he sees his landing and he's got people to catch him. Anyway, it's going to be a wild match next month. But anyway, we get back. They make it their way to the ring. Darby Allin goes for his tope suicida, which is already at a pretty incredible rate of speed. But this man, his yin has found his yang in Big Bill, because he dives and right into a giant swinging side slam on the floor that looked incredible.
Incredible. I mean, what do you call this? This was this is he spun like a Beyblade, you wind the thing up and then it was incredible. The best boss man slam I've ever seen.
Bill brings out a table and goes to military press Darby through it, but this is when Sting makes his comeback and stops him. Starks hits a scorpion death drop onto Sting for a 2 count, and then it's Sting with a pair of stinger splashes onto Big Bill, code red onto Big Bill, and then the coffin drop to the floor. Starks doesn't land the drop kick, and Sting is able to take the legs, apply the scorpion death lock, when Bill returns with Darby still on his back, and Darby sends both of them off the apron through the table. Starks gets to the rope, but they explain it's a tornado match, so it doesn't break up the hold, but Sting loses his grip. And then as he goes for another stinger splash, Starks yanks off the turnbuckle pad at the last second, so Sting goes into the buckle, and Starks goes into the corner, but he's torn. Is he going to end Sting right here? And as he is contemplating it, he goes for the spear, hits it. Sting kicks out. This place is going nuts for Sting. Starks goes for a follow-up spear, but this time Sting has him scouted, and he runs right into a scorpion death drop for a massive pop as Sting pins Ricky Starks, and Sting and Darby win the AEW tag titles.
The little moment of hesitation from Starks and maybe, giving us a little bit of a glimpse of the heart that is, within his sort of icy soul was interesting. I mean, does it suggest to you maybe that he's flirting with a babyface turn again?
you could come out of that. You could certainly, man, I'd hate to see them. I enjoy Starks and Big Bill. I think
Me
these
too.
two, like, they're such odd figures to imagine having a chemistry as a team, but it's worked. But you do have that you could have Big Bill call out Ricky Starks, like, you cost us. You hesitated at the end, and certainly you could take that as, you know, for Starks. Like, it was done for a reason here.
Feels like a very natural feud to follow up this tag title run, which is greatly over exceeded my expectations. Of course, you know, I guess they were supposed to. What was the big thing? I guess they were supposed to face who? Kenny Omega, of course. Yeah, Kenny Omega and Jericho. That didn't end up happening. But I think these two really made the best of their time with these championships, especially Big Bill. Let's talk about W. Morrissey here, who really greatly I think achieved my expectations of him in this role. He feels not just only like a very sort of like I don't know, well-rounded performer at this point, good personality, good charisma, great in ring. He really feels like he's made a very strong comeback, and this tag team I think really cemented, you know, the Big Bill comeback. I was shocked at the level of quality of this match, because this was not Sting taking it easy at all. Like, this was him wrestling probably what felt like, have we seen him wrestle his second last match, would you say?
Maybe they do one title defense. I could see this being the last one before the pay-per-view. They really don't need another match unless you just feel the need for it on TV. Like, I think you'd have to have a reason for it. Yeah, this could have been it.
Let's not risk, you know, any potential injury to this man. He did a lot in this match, and has clearly gotten into some of the best shape of his entire run ahead of this Revolution match, because the man was not gassed at the end of this. This went a pretty long time. He was doing a lot of crazy shit and was not just hanging out in the corner waiting for Darby.
And he's looked rough in some recent appearances. This was,
you
know,
we're talking tornado tag. He didn't have time waiting on the apron. He was active this entire time, running around jumping off of balconies. You know, he killed it here, as did these other three. All of them I thought looked amazing.
Yeah. So they went with the tag title change here on TV, and the kids get into the ring. There's a confetti celebration, and then the Young Bucks attack. They're all in white with their white bats. And, you know, sometimes we talk about blood. Can't dispute the fact that it really made this segment, because Darby is bleeding a gusher from his forehead, and all this blood gets smeared onto the white suits of the Young Bucks. It was a phenomenal visual, and they're just beating them down. They go for the BTE trigger, which Excalibur notes he has been told is now the EVP trigger. Tons of heat here, and they just dump the belts on top of Sting and Darby. These Suns had to sell forever, because all of the attack was on Sting and Darby, and I think Matt realized it. He finally gave one of them a kick. And one of the Suns is just like looking at one point, and he's like, oh man, we've been down from like a punch for a really long time here. And they just had to lie here for like 5 minutes, but super heated angle. And at the end, Excalibur, what a line to go off the show with. The Young Bucks will never recover from this. Their reputation is destroyed. I thought this angle was awesome. Like, really, I thought easily the strongest thing the Bucks have done since these new characters were introduced. I could certainly go for more of this in the next couple of weeks, and then post Revolution they can get back to all the EVP meta stuff. But this was really great angle to build it. Like, this felt like the main event of a pay-per-view type of angle, and now you have the tag titles involved.
It was a good, bloody, violent angle to offset some of the campiness we've seen out of the Bucks with this particular gimmick. And you're right, I think they need to continue in this direction to make this feel like it's the level of serious war that it needs to be for Sting's final match. Great match though, and you know, part of, I think, the this entire sort of a final run for Sting was me expecting a lot more of Ric Flair, who I don't feel like we've seen in quite a while. Do you think that he pops back up?
It's a good question. Like, he has been absent for a long time, and it's not as though like they were plugging the Woo Energy stuff on the show as well. So it's
They
not
were,
like,
yes. Mhm.
yeah, that
Yeah.
was like the sponsor of the first match. So it's not like that is not incorporated into all of this. I can't imagine he's not going to be there for the Greensboro show. And
Mhm.
I would think at the very least, they're going to have him do some promo on one of these TVs over the next few weeks. Because I think that's what you should be relying on. The next few weeks should be about Sting's history and contemplate, can I do this against the Young Bucks? And after this beatdown, like it should be more on the build up, focusing on the match. I don't think you need to do have these two wrestle, but
Mhm.
you know, you are still selling tickets and stuff. And maybe they squeeze in one more with Sting and Darby.
I hope it's against Christopher Daniels and
Matt Sydal.
yeah, Matt
They're all the
Sydal.
same. Yes.
Give them an easy one. No, that'll be a great match too if that happened. Yeah.
So there you go. That was Dynamite. Overall, I mean, the 30-minute match, the main event that, I mean, I don't know what to expect in this main event. It was all contingent on Sting, and I would say it delivered in a big way. This crowd was great in, where were they tonight? In Phoenix.
Mhm.
I thought overall it was like, we've kind of gotten away from some of these more heated AEW crowds. Like the atmosphere has not been just a given that you get on these shows. So it was a nice, it elevated a lot on the show as well. But I'd say overall, Jericho and Takeshita was like had his bumps in there, but you know, both worked really, really hard. Great finish for that. So Revolution is taking shape.
It is, yeah. I really enjoyed Dynamite tonight. When you book in the show with such quality,
And the CMLL match in there too. Yeah.
Yes, top to bottom. I thought you had some really strong wrestling in this, and some pretty decent build towards Revolution as well. So, thumbs up show. So we kind of have like a pretty good idea of what the card's going to be, don't we, for Revolution?
I think we have the
Diana?
key matches that, I mean, ultimately this is the Sting show.
Mhm.
I'm very high on what this show is going to end up doing. Like I'm not predicting that this is going to be like 200,000 buys, but I think this is going to be a really strong number all off of Sting and the retirement match. Like if this hits 200, that might sound ridiculous being that only 2 shows in their history have hit that. But this is going to be big. These are the type of things that do attract people that are not your every month buyers. That I think that there's the lead up to this. Now it is all about the nostalgia and pushing. This is historic. What you're going to see. People believe that this is his retirement match. This isn't one of those like wink and a nods. Like, is this really is this just another wrestling retirement? I think people buy this as legit.
Wait till next year.
Well,
Sting's second final match.
Yeah. So anyway, no, next year they'll get Foley. So no, I'm very high, like a month out, and the Joe Hangman Swerve, that's a really strong number 2, and the rest of the card will figure itself out.
We've got Orange Cassidy versus Roderick Strong, of course, and then Timeless Tony Storm versus Deonna Purrazzo as well.
Right. There you go, everybody. We will now move on over to feedback and super chat. So if you want to get any of your questions in, you're welcome to do so. Also, up on the forum, you can shoot in your feedback for the Smashing Machine if you want to get that in before Thursday.
We got a super chat here from Aaron Bowman Sr., who sent $5 to say, I used to listen to Jelly Roll mixtapes back in 2010. Never would have thought he'd blow up like he has. His story is crazy. Love the content, fellas.
Super Bowl commercial, Jelly Roll. Yes.
Okay. All right.
All right, we're going to go to Mark with our first piece of feedback. An all-time great Dynamite from a 30-minute clinic to open the show to Sting's final World Tag Team Championship victory and closing show angle. So wild to remember being 9 years old and watching a tape of Super Brawl 2 and Sting winning the WCW title from Lex Luger. And here we are 32 years later with this win. I can't think of a better final run for any talent than Sting's over the last several years in AEW. He's certainly got that 65-year-old run on lock for the time being.
Mm-hmm. Yes, he has.
A feeling of momentum throughout the show as both Revolution and now big business in the weeks ahead. A welcome distraction from all the other awful news throughout the business right now. Before I go, I want to commend John Brandon and Bix on an excellent episode today covering Titan Gate. People need to listen and see that these Janelle Grant accusations don't exist in a bubble, and I hope justice finally catches up with the organization. Quick question that you've already addressed at the top. Do you read the statement from Anthony Ciccione being one that seems to give the impression that the future of TNA is to focus on growing with Anthem rather than other companies in wrestling? I don't have his statement in front of me. I know that Anthony Ciccione did have a statement, but Wei, if you want to read the next piece of feedback, I'll pull it up.
Okay, sure. I read the statement. hard to like. I don't know if that statement directly answers whether or not TNA will continue working with other companies. One can argue that the working relationship with other companies is helping them grow and arguably making them stay relevant within the professional wrestling space because everybody else is working with everybody else. I don't really know what to read into it beyond the fact that it sounds like they're going to either use TNA to benefit the rest of Anthem's properties or use the rest of Anthem's properties to benefit TNA through cost savings or just through other corporate synergies.
It's an element that could be a factor. It's like we can look at TNA, and I mean, kind of the go-to has always been that like TNA is in this different position than a lot of other wrestling companies in that, they're not this insulated company that is you're measuring like what they're making on pay-per-view or selling tickets. It's within this larger ecosystem that is Anthem. But I mean, we can look at this. Like, this is not a company that is like they're spending a lot of money. I am sure that I would be stunned if they've been profitable in any of these years under Anthem. But would now be the time to be changing that when you're it feels like they've been trying to get that spark going, and yeah, you don't have a bonfire yet, but you've at least got some smoke, and you're creating some you've really made some inroads over this past month with this rebranding. And Scott D'Amore is that guy that has had a lot of connections with the talents, with these different promotions. Like he is, he can pick up the phone and pretty much run a company in the way you would want. So again, that's looking at it from the business aspect. And we don't know if that's the be all end all in all of this. In Anthony Ciccione, I won't read this whole thing, but he did write this. This move is intended to further integrate TNA Wrestling into the entertainment group of Anthem Sports and Entertainment as we work to leverage the resources of the entire company to add more value. And a lot of this is just kind of a replay or a repeat of the press release, but that's sort of where we were going. TNA Wrestling is in a position to take a big leap toward its next stage of growth and expansion. While we can create more operational efficiency, the most exciting part is expanding existing revenue streams and developing new ones. Wrestling promotions have evolved from event-driven businesses to global media enterprises.
I thought the next paragraph is pretty interesting too. He says, I was in Las Vegas this is Anthony Ciccione. He says, I was in Las Vegas last month for both the Hard to Kill pay-per-view and the next night's Stank Eye show. Those are not just the two best pro wrestling shows I have attended. They were record-setting for TNA Wrestling on multiple fronts. That growth, expansion, and popularity that thousands witnessed live and in person in Las Vegas and live on pay-per-view around the world will continue in 2024. So, the two best wrestling shows he's been to.
I don't know how many wrestling shows. Like, I'm sure he's been to quite a few wrestling shows over these last 6 years. So, but I mean, the first question you would come to is that this was such a great milestone for the company, where we're getting rid of the person who was behind all of this, or at least one of the key people.
All right. Let's go up next to Andrew from Cape Breton, who says, definitely one of the better shows that they've had recently with some incredible heat at the end of the night. I'm really interested in the outcome of Sting's final match. You could go in any direction by having the great Sting farewell or making the Bucks even more despised with beating Sting. I also really like Hechicero. I never heard of him until watching him wrestle on Saturday, and he's someone who they should probably bring back from time to time, like Vikingo, Ishii, Suzuki, RVD, and others. He's someone they should give a title to. They have enough to go around. Why not give one to a guy in another company? Swerve and Hangman were great, and while it was predictable, the match at the pay-per-view should be really good. Great show overall.
All right, next up we go to Sal, who writes, this was a great Dynamite. Best part was watching Sting and Darby win the titles with my 3 kids. My kids love Sting and Darby, and it's a big event in our household anytime they wrestle. They all cheered at the end and were furious at the Young Bucks afterward. Sting's time in AEW has been something special, and it's a lot of fun watching one of my childhood favorites with my own kids. I'll be making the flight to Greensboro for his last match, and I'm really excited for it. Hope you guys have a great night.
All right. Super chat here from John Siino, who says, Swerving and Hangman were 30-06. Sorry, John.
The Grinch. Hey, you can't give them the credit if they were.
You gotta get the right time on Cage Match, Siino. So thank you very much, Siino, for that. Let's go to Chris from Nevada, who says, solid show. Hangman and Swerve could legit fight forever, and I would never get tired of it. I saw the three-way coming, yet I was still excited for whatever direction they want to go. I've enjoyed Toni Storm, but am I the only one hoping Deonna gets the title at Revolution? And I'm hoping their match is in color, as the back and forth between to black and white sure does a number on my eyes. I hope I'm pretty sure the whole match will be in color like it was tonight. CMLL versus BCC. Is this building to CMLL being a part of Forbidden Door? Is that that's an interesting, idea.
It's a very easy conclusion that you can make now that you have the relationship.
He says Undisputed Kingdom can attack everyone in the locker room, and I still won't take them seriously until Cole is back and out of the wheelchair. The main event was wild, definitely like the tornado tag rules added to the match, and even if the finish was predictable, I still went wild for Sting getting gold again. Do you think he wants to lose at Revolution, or would you cap Darby and Sting as undefeated throughout their entire run?
I would have Sting and Darby win at Greensboro. And have the Bucks it's not as though the Bucks are some rising act that this is going to somehow stifle. I just feel at this point, it's this show is so much about Sting, but I think ultimately it's going to be his call. He might be adamant on losing. And I would think that the Bucks are probably adamant upon losing as well. That would not surprise me at all that you have one of those situations. But I think in this case, having these two retire as champions, I don't really have an issue with that. And you go off with the feel good ending as opposed to what are we making the Young Bucks with a win? They're Teflon.
Yeah, I think you can certainly go either way. But I want to see the finish that creates the most drama. And if the most drama is, a big sort of celebratory moment here with Sting holding his championship at the end, then so be it. But if the most drama is created with him taking a heartbreaking pinfall loss, a la Shawn and Flair, I would love to see that too. Whatever it creates for the best moment, I want to see.
If they can top the moment of Muto climbing for the moonsault and realizing he can't do it anymore, that's my litmus test. Okay, for this type of a match, that kind of drama.
At this point, maybe he could do a moonsault. This thing,
maybe he'll try. Last one is Jordan from the Bronx. Swerve and Hangman can wrestle 1,000 times and it will never get old. The CML integration so far is a lot of fun. The women's division has more depth to it than before. I love the timeless gimmick, but less is more during the matches. Tonight, she dialed it back. It was more focused and vicious. Sting and Darby winning the tag titles is not what I would do, but we know that it's only going to be a month-long reign. I wonder what happens to Big Bill and Starks going forward. Do they keep teaming or go back to being singles? I truly enjoyed them together, and I wouldn't have minded if they kept the belts a bit longer. Well, I think we answered all those questions in a roundabout way throughout the discussion. So there you go. Seemed to be a very positive Dynamite for most looking at this show as they get closer and closer to the pay-per-view. Thursday, we're back with Rewind-A-Wai, so you can jump on postwrestlingcafe.com for that. And then a Friday night, Rewind-A-SmackDown, we will be back to talk all the latest news. We'll chat about the WrestleMania press conference and whatever they do following that up. With SmackDown that I believe is in Charlotte on Friday night, and extensive Super Bowl preview on Friday. We're going to go through all the starters. We'll go through the prop bets. Huge.
You want to come back for a review on Sunday, John?
Definitely not.
You want to review the Super Bowl?
No.
Okay.
I don't think I'll even turn on the Super Bowl, to be quite honest. But hey,
maybe we'll talk about Usher.
Yeah, perhaps. Yeah. Okay, that's it for us, everyone. 2 shows in the can today. Back tomorrow. That is it.
Hey, choptees.com/postwrestling. Support your favorite post wrestling podcast by grabbing a t-shirt. Choptees.com. Hey, 10% off for new orders. Free shipping and 10% off. What are we, crazy?
Are we going out of business here?
I got to message Dickie about that. This is just
proper efficiencies, streamlining the revenue pillars.
Thank you.
Yes. Okay, good night. I'm tired.